Welcome to the BuildForce virtual career chat. My name is Angela Forbes. So after a summer break, we start back with our most requested topic. So the renewables sector plays a crucial role in reducing the UK's reliance on fossil fuels by generating energy from renewable natural resources that nature will replace, like wind, water and sunshine. So the growth in this industry is global and it reflects a shift towards this planet-friendly energy and the help in the fight against climate change. Now, renewable energy does have lots of overlap with construction and also with nuclear, which our speakers will explain more detail today, because we're going to provide an insight over the next 90 minutes of how you, our military community, should consider this as a viable career option. So you're going to hear from some veterans and how they have transitioned into this space and to better understand the roles that they are doing. So we're joined by global organisations RWE and Altrad. So we will start with RWE. I will hand over to Celia Anderson, Offshore Wind Skills Strategy Lead, to commence our chat. Celia, I'll give you a moment just to bring up your presentation. We'll switch our cameras off. We'll take questions at the end, so please feel free to write in any Q&A as we're going. The speakers, please feel free to respond as well.
Angela and BuildForce, thank you very much for this opportunity. We're delighted to be here, and also delighted to be sharing the stage with Altrad. And I must admit, until it was mentioned to me how much work Altrad has done with RWE in the past, it's on a global basis, and so there's a stronger synergy than I must admit I had appreciated. I don't have the privilege of being ex-military, so I'm going to keep my session very short so that you actually get to hear from people that are operational, because I think it's far more important to listen to them. The best I can offer is I'm a forces brat. Just a very brief touch on RWE and who we are. As UK's leading power generator, and a company that most people have never heard of. Occasionally we find that people do know about us, but that's only because we've got power stations. We've also got offshore wind, onshore wind, we've got airborne wind in Ireland, solar, we're looking at floating solar, hydro, hydrogen, CCS, battery storage, and I'm sure that solar, no, I've mentioned solar, biomass. So within UK, it's about 4.6 gigawatts that we generate. And on the offshore wind side of things, pro rata, it's 1.9 gigawatts. However, the important thing from the offshore wind side is the fact that we've got 9.8 gigawatts in the pipeline at the moment. And if you think that within UK, there's, I think it's just under 15 gigawatts in operation, to have just under 10 in the pipeline from RWE alone shows what the opportunity is. But it's going to take some time to come through. That slide gives an indication of roughly where our wind farms are, the operational wind farms, but we've got a number that are in development at the moment, most around the waters of England, Scotland, and a couple in Ireland. From this point onwards, I'm going to gallop through the slides, and so I would recommend that if you can do a screen grab or photo them, or if you want them, I'm sure we can find a way of sharing them at another point, but I'm not going to go into the detail. So the various phases, there's four main phases in the building of a wind farm. The key to this, if you look at all of the next few slides, is the variety of roles. Now, the perception is that offshore wind is offshore, but a large percentage of the work is onshore, particularly in the early phases. It's not all about engineers. It's not all about technicians. However, the ability to communicate is probably one of the top of the prerequisites for going into any role. So the development phase, at longest can be about 10 years, ideally quite a lot shorter, but about 5 years, when there's all of the work onshore that has to be done, as well as the offshore. So hence a large amount of surveying to understand what's there, the project design work, getting the various consents sorted, the communication with the stakeholders. That then moves us into the construction phase, 3 to 5 years roughly. We've only got one of our wind farms in construction at the moment, which is Sophia, and that's a big one. But you can see that a combination of the overlap between the manufacturing of the various components and the installation and getting them operational, the skills change quite dramatically. A lot of the previous skills are going to be important, but that's when we start moving into the civil engineers and the skilled trades. The next thing that I'm going to point out on this, I mentioned at the start very quickly that onshore work is as important as the offshore work. And so this is where there's significant overlap, because a lot of this is civils. So this one is the substation that went in for Triton Knoll. 5 rugby pitches. They are significant size. And if you look at the cable route on that one, was 57 kilometres. They vary in length. Some are longer than that, some are shorter than that. You'll note what the civilian world, the offshore wind world, calls high voltage is different to what the military refers to as high voltage. But I'll leave that to the likes of Kelvin, who'd be able to explain the difference. And then moving into the O&M phase. This is 25 to 30 years. The older projects are 25, and then they're reassessed to see whether or not their life should be extended. But the current ones going in are likely to be 30 years. And these predominantly will be local roles. The overlap between the installation and the O&M phase, significant amount of the work is on the marine side, as you would expect. The next slide is just to give an indication of the variety of jobs that we've got from veterans working within RWE. As you can see from that, a large number of them have got a technical side. Not all of them, but the vast majority are either technical or engineering based. I've put up here just some useful sources of information. If you got the slide, then obviously you'll be able to click through on them. The reason I've got the trade associations and cluster bodies is they're a very good source of information and events. So if you have an opportunity to get to any of the events, then you can start networking with people, you can talk to people. The training courses, the top 2 are free, so very easy to access, and they mean that you start speaking the right language. You've got an understanding how the industry fits together. I rarely put on something that's chargeable. However, I'm in the process of doing the offshore wind learning course at the moment. It is only £100, but it is specific to the global offshore wind industry, and it's a really useful introduction, as well as some other accesses to information. So the one thing I've realised is I forgot to introduce the team that I've got here with us today, which I must admit I'm absolutely delighted. So I'm going to hand over to Kelvin Billings. He's a senior offshore wind turbine technician with Siemens Gamesa, not RWE. I did try to find a way that I could take the RWE off the top of the slide, which is why I haven't got it up there. But I'm going to leave Kelvin to explain a bit more about his background as a Royal Marine before he came into the industry. That will be followed by Pete Chilcott, who is with RWE as a health and safety advisor on one of our operational wind farms, an ex-Royal Navy submariner. And then I'm hoping that Stuart Harris is able to join us. He's, I think, been with us for about a year, as he was a Welsh Guard before that, but he came in through the apprenticeship route. And so today, I understand, is the last day of his apprenticeship, so what a way to celebrate. And he's on the health and safety side, construction and the operations for Rampion yet again. So at that point, I'm going to hand over to Kelvin. As I say, you're operational, so you know far more about this than I'll ever know.
Thank you, Celia, for that. As Celia said, I'm Kelvin Billings. I'm an ex-Royal Marine Commando. I served 10 years. what I'm going to talk about over the next sort of 10-15 minutes. I'm going to be brutally honest with you of my journey and the sort of speed bumps I come across of being an ex-Royal Marine that some of you in the Army and Navy and RAF may not come across because you may be engineers already. But yeah, so my journey started in offshore oil and gas in 2014. Really, when I first left the Marines in officially February 2012, I did what most Marines done and went on to close protection, and then from that into the anti-piracy, as that was quite a hot topic at the time. During that, I was working on an oil rig just off the coast of Nigeria, where I ended up meeting a lot of offshore workers, engineers, mechanical, electrical, etc. Which is something, if I'm really honest, I had no qualifications in. I was a sniper in the Royal Marines. All right, it's great in the Royal Marines, doesn't really transition into civilian life at all. No one really cares, if I'm honest. But something I didn't realise is my other transferable skills I had, whether that be leading teams, management, not being scared to speak up, etc. Stuff you don't really realise you necessarily learn on the journey in any of the military, really. But you realise once you're in Civvy Street that you do need them sort of people. I'm not saying civilians can't learn that, but it's just the military seems to be pretty good at it from what I've seen. I'm a bit biased though. But basically, I'm going to talk about right at the beginning. Really, I was a contractor. I never applied for a full-time position because basically, if I'm being brutally honest, I couldn't get interviews. I was sending my CV off with all the qualifications I was doing in the background, and so I was doing GWO, all your work in the height stuff, rope access. I ended up getting a few jobs contracting, which paid really well, but they were short stints. They were sort of like 2-3 months rope access, doing a little bit of electrical, mechanical work, blade work, etc. On wind turbines, and also oil and gas. So I was jumping in between oil and gas and renewables at the time. And it wasn't, and if in all fairness, companies kept promising me the world. If I'm being really honest, they kept saying, I'll do this course, do that course, you'll get a full-time position. So I ended up wasting, if I'm honest, a lot of my ALCAS credits, as that's what they're called, I think. If I'm being really honest now, especially the way Siemens are going, I can't speak for other companies, but generally Siemens now are looking for a minimum of level 3 electrical, mechanical, but pushing towards more electrical now, as the wind turbines are going more that way. If you go back to the 3.6s, the turbine, I worked on about 5-6 years ago, but they all had gearboxes in. Turbines now have not got any of that. They're direct drives, so they're pretty much fully electrical. So you need to be able to troubleshoot, and you need that electrical knowledge. Unfortunately, we've had some accidents within the industry over the last several years, so they are getting stricter on that as well. We're actually conducting interviews this week, and generally, unless someone really stands out, we're not taking anyone with a underneath level 3. So if I'm being honest, if you're a Royal Marine like myself that's coming out with no electrical qualifications, I would personally do at least a level 2, a level 3 course. I think they're normally free as a college, but you can do 6-month ones. So if you can do it while you're in and get that leave, or I think you can break it up into 2 lots of 3 months. Then that's the way I would go about it. And that's what I ended up doing. But I already left, so I actually had to take 6 months out of work to do that, which is not ideal. I was lucky enough to be able to, but I know if you've already got a family or that, or you just can't afford that, then you wouldn't be able to do that. So that would be my number one advice: is going to get electrical qualification, level 3 minimum, MBQ, and then companies after that will put you through HNCs and all that. I personally wouldn't start wasting money on GWOs and any sort of slinger banksman courses that a lot of companies throw about. Apologies if there's any on. They can be worth doing if you're going to be a contractor, but if you're going for a more permanent position for either a client like RWE or SSE or someone like that, or Siemens, they will put you through them courses after the interview stage. They will send you away for, I think it's around about 6 weeks, and they'll put you through all your wind turbine courses that you need, and it will probably save you about 8-9 grand. I'm not saying if you're going to go down the contract route that it's not worth doing them courses. that's a different avenue. But before you start wasting your credits and your money, because you only get one lot of them, I'd really look into that. And also after this, I'm happy for anyone to add me on LinkedIn and talk to me about any courses they might have been offered already. And obviously bear with me, because if I get 100 people messaging me, I'm not going to be able to get back to you all at once. But I'm more than happy to help anyone where I can with regards to courses. My journey within Siemens, this is something I've seen quite a few military people at my site in particular do, is we are good at taking information on board and learning quickly. I actually, when I was a contractor, I was probably earning more money to start with, but then I decided to sort of like take quite a big pay drop to go and be a level 4 technician at the time, which again is basically learning the whole turbine, servicing it from oil changes, nothing to do with troubleshooting yet, so none of the fun stuff really, to talking up bolts, a proper graft really. Even though the military can be hard, it's a different sort of graft. Not always, but it's there. You're actually going home at night with achy backs and that. But then I worked my way up pretty quickly with my electrical quals, and worked my way up to troubleshooter. And then I was a troubleshooter a year before I was the senior technician at site. Senior technician is the best way to describe that. Is you're a shift supervisor, but you're sort of like the sergeant major. So you're in between corporate and the engineering side. So you're keeping everything in. So people basically don't run away. Corporate work very different to reality in a lot of ways. They're looking after the budget. So if you know the contracts, they know stuff we don't know. But obviously you've got to be honest with how long things take and what happens offshore. So I'm sort of like the middleman now, where I occasionally go offshore, but I work a rotation of a week on, week off, which suits my home life perfectly. If I was now to go transition to corporate and management, it'd generally be a Monday to Friday. So it's what works for you basically. What else is there to talk about? Siemens. I'll talk about Siemens. Celia said we're Siemens domain, so we're currently transitioning over to Siemens Energy to be sort of one block now. There's quite a few different companies, but basically a lot of people don't know that Siemens are actually a manufacturer. So we will work under the likes of RWE, for example. They could be a customer. So they're obviously the energy provider, and we're the manufacturer. So if they decide to take on our turbines, we will offer a package, it's generally a 5, 10, 15-year package where 5 years warranty, and then we'll offer a service package. And then generally after that contract ends, we would do literally a t-shirt change, and we'll work them for RWE and carry on them roles as such. A few little differences, but generally that's what happens. Because yeah, I've heard a few people at events that I've done and hosted come up to me and generally thought Siemens just built the turbines. They didn't realise they helped maintain them afterwards. So just to clarify, anyone who may have wanted to ask that question, because I've heard it quite a lot in the last year. Probably naively enough, because I'm in the industry, I just assumed everyone would know what Siemens do, but they didn't. So that hopefully that clears that up. I think that's about it, if I'm being really honest. I don't know if there is time for questions and all that, Celia. I wasn't sure if anyone did. I know I've got a 20-minute slot and I've probably rushed through that, but I'm more than happy if there is, but tell me if there isn't.
You've done great, Kelvin. I've actually got a few questions of my own, so we'll bring Celia back.
The other thing is Siemens Energy, but Siemens involved in the offshore wind industry is probably the biggest employer within UK. And it's one of the reasons it's really useful to get your perspective on this, because you do employ a lot of people, and you've got a high proportion of military there as well.
Just as Altrad are bringing their screen up in their presentation, just a quick question to Kelvin, if he's still there. It was just on something that he said. You said that you kind of moved into close protection when you left. Do you think that's actually advisable, just to go in and do something you're comfortable with, that you can do to demilitarize, and then give yourself time, a year, 2 years, 3 years, until you start the permanent career piece?
Well, if I'm honest, at the time I left, it seemed it was quite a hot topic, and Marines and Paras in particular were going on to that for the money, if I'm being honest. I wouldn't say it's too different from the military in the people you're working with. There wasn't many civilians involved. I would say the transition for me really started when I started to actually contract for companies. I'm not going to lie, I really struggled at first with civilian life. I'll be really honest with you. I found the transition very hard. I was used to, and don't take this personally, anyone on the call, if you're a civilian or anything, I don't mean it like that. But I found working with a body of men in particular, and the honour that came with that, and generally everyone had your back. There was no sort of gossip. I found, I'm sure there is, but I didn't find this. Where I found in Civvy Street, it was dog eat dog. It was very much like people would pretend to be your best mate, promise you the world, and then sort of stab you in the back and lie, and then you just wouldn't hear from them again. So I had to learn not to take that personally and just realise that was the way it was. Some people may have wanted to help at the time, and they didn't, but I did find that hard for a couple of years. But you learn who to trust, like anything. But it's definitely a different way of life. Like I say, I'm 10. Hold on, when did I leave? I'm 11 years in now. And yeah, I'm a civilian now and myself, fully embedded, but it is very different.
No, it's a great observation. And again, it was one of the reasons why we set up BuildForce, so that this is your safe, respected space where everybody is supportive, because it can be a big, bad, ugly world out there. But it's a really good observation on your part. And that candidness and openness is what the service leavers need to hear, just to help them as they navigate through. But thank you for that. Thank you for that, Kelvin. We'll pass to Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hello, Angela. All good? Can you see the screen? Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yes, we can.
Excellent. Right, excellent. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Lovely to be here. We've done one of these before, generally on Altrad. This time we're going to sort of narrow it down a little bit, and we're going to go into the theme, obviously, for today is renewables. And you could say, well, hang on a second, why is Altrad talking about this? Because we don't actually operate in the wind sector, like you've just heard. But we do come into the world of net zero, but more of that in a second. And net zero is fundamental to the whole sort of renewables agenda. We can do it slightly differently. That's our running order. I'll just talk about what we do at Altrad, where this sort of fits in. And then I've got 4 veterans, all in different parts of the business, all with different start points, all different stories. I'm a technical, most are not. And they'll talk to you a little bit about what they do, what's around them, and how they got into this particular organisation and this particular sector. Carly will talk for a little bit longer on the talent development programs that we run within Altrad, and then I'll talk to you about our overall program, which is called the Mission Ready program, but more of that in a second. So let's see if the technology works. Let's hope so. But here's a little video where you'll see a couple of the people that they're going to talk to you a little bit later. And let's see if this works. Always a moment.
The Altrad Military Network means Altrad is a place where service leavers can thrive. We are the critical structure that supports our nation's vital assets. Our people make a difference in the world as we solve critical challenges through innovation, creativity, and team. We're part of the Altrad group with almost 2,000 people distributed through more than these worldwide.
At Altrad, something bigger.
At Altrad, people create endless tastes.
We know you, and we know what you can bring to Altrad.
I'm Carly, and I belong here.
I'm Jamie Martinez, part of the Altrad Military Network, and this is where I belong.
Join Altrad Network. Email military.altraduk@altrad.com. Come with us. The possibilities are endless.
Hey, I'm really hoping the sound did work on that. Otherwise, you just watch a nice silent movie with a couple of people talking. And the slight irony there is that Jamie Martinez doesn't belong here anymore because he left and is now part of the Cayman Island Defence Force. But hey, good for him. It just goes to show you that once you're out in the civilian world, actually what you do is you create your own career. And that's probably something we could probably come back to in Q&A. So what do we actually do in Altrad? Well, we're a service provider. We win contracts and we place our people who are highly skilled in a range of services onto the asset that is owned by clients like RWE and others, Siemens as well. So we've got a range of clients that we work for. We have the skilled people and we go and do the work that we win on those particular platforms. So the sort of services we provide, well, there's just a snapshot. I couldn't even talk to you about half of them, but some of them are really technical. Some of them are real sort of hard labour, if you like. But this is about technical people going onto sites and delivering the sort of service that we need. Now, we actually work in a number of sectors, but I won't concentrate on them at all. We work offshore. We work on the oil platforms, which isn't exactly renewables, I know. But it's a very popular part of the business, particularly for service leavers. It's to do with the lifestyle. It's to do with the sort of work that has already been described a little bit by Kelvin as well, albeit in a slightly different context. We work all across industrial sectors on shore. There are some of our locations which I've put on the screen, and the sort of roles we do there. It might be power stations, it might be pharmaceuticals, it might be oil refineries or petrochemical plants, that sort of place. So when you think of an industrial setting across the UK, we've probably got people. But more relevant to this whole world of renewables is our contribution to net zero. Now, if you're Ed Miliband and you're trying to get the country to the net zero targets that the government is committed to, the thing that is going to get you there is nuclear. And we work right across the nuclear sector. And in fact, our nuclear part of the business is the thing that is growing. And we work in a number of contexts, from decommissioning at one hand at Sellafield to the generation of nuclear power across all the nuclear power plants that are all across the UK, and crucially for the building of the new nuclear power plants that are so critical to what we do, be that Hinkley Point C or Sizewell C, and the other generations that are going to take place in due course, and the sort of work that the team will describe in a minute are on the screen as well. And then also, and finally, we work in a thing called major projects. Now, major projects are effectively the renewable projects. The picture on the screen there is the site that has been bought by BP up in Teesside. That's going to be a great carbon capture plant, a hydrogen plant as well. And these are the sort of projects that we're looking at in order to really make a difference on net zero. So carbon capture, hydrogen, these are the sort of things that we will become contractors for the clients that will be putting those sort of facilities in. This is a growth area, and whilst our nuclear business is the one that really matters to us at the moment, I suspect given a year, given 2 years, it's going to be these major projects such as Net Zero and Teesside, which will become a real driver for our business as well. So that's what we're doing. That's where we're away. What I'm going to now do is we're going to tell the story of the veterans who work for us, who work in all different parts of to start with the nuclear part, but also across Altrad UK. They'll tell their stories, they'll tell you what they're doing, and they'll tell you how we got into them. But first up, Bob Anderson.
Thank you, Mike. Hello, everybody. As Mike has said, I'm Bob Anderson. I've been with Altrad Babcock now, or Babcock, since 2008, when I left the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers after 22 years service. My career in the army, I loved it. Best job I ever had. I still think that way now, but I had to look at something else that I was going to enjoy equally. I wanted to stay in mechanical engineering, as I was a vehicle mechanic in the army, and I progressed on through, and I came and joined. It was then Doosan Babcock, but now Altrad Babcock for acquisitions. And I put my CVs in through the transitional workshops. I got a phone call. And then after several interviews, I then got offered a job as a resident engineer at Hinkley Point B nuclear power station. At the time, that was a generating power station, but currently now it's going through decommissioning. While I was there, I got a few skills. Some of the skills that I got was became an appointed person for lifting operations, which is a very well-paid job out in Civilian Street. It's a qualification that you just can't go and attend. You have to have some experience from a mechanical background to be able to go and do it. Babcock at the time, they noticed I had this, and within 3 months of joining Babcock, they sent me on this course, which normally has about an 80% failure rate unless you do have some sort of mechanical background. And the mechanical backgrounds that we're looking for is any sort of mechanical backgrounds, but you must have an NVQ level 3. We do look at people that are rising stars and see if we can upskill. We do have an upskilling program, so people that don't have NVQ level 3 but aspire to be mechanical engineers in various disciplines, they can get identified, and then we can put them on one of our upskilling programs to bring them up to the relevant NVQ level 3 to become a qualified tradesman. So after I was there at Hinkley Point B, I moved on to Dungeness B nuclear power station. I became the outage optimised lead, and an outage on a nuclear power station is a planned shutdown where the reactors get shut down and we go in and we do planned maintenance servicing and scheduled maintenance as per the EDF contract So all these nuclear power stations currently around the country are operated by Electro de France, or EDF. Once my tenure there at Dungeness B finished, I came to Sizewell, working at nuclear power station here. We're currently sat at the moment. I became the outage mechanical lead. I'd done all the planning and the projects for Sizewell B for Babcock. I came here to do a job for about 6 months, and I've ended up being here now 13 years due to various projects that I've delivered and the success that we've had here. So from becoming a resident engineer, I swiftly got promoted to the site manager at Sizewell, where I managed the staff and labour, which includes the blue collar trades of your welders, your riggers, your pipe fitters, your platers, electricians, and various other qualified engineers that we do have on a day-to-day business. And also one of the main things that we have to do here in the management side is also manage the client and the expectations, and also all our stakeholders. EDF are a business. They have to generate power. If they're not generating power, then they're losing money. So they come to their contractors to make sure that their plant and equipment is operating as it should be. And one of their key contract partners, and we're known as a lifetime partner, is Altrad Babcock. You'll find us on all of the 8 EDF sites at the moment, but out of the 8, 3 are currently going through into decommissioning. So after I became a site manager, 3 years later, I went and got promoted to an operations manager, which is my current role. So I look after a number of site managers who look after a number of sites. Some of the sites I work on now are decommissioning at Dungeness A, and that's for the nuclear restoration services. I'm also heavily involved working for a government agency called the United Kingdom Atomic Energy Authority. We supply mechanical engineers and engineering advice and solutions, and also we deliver projects. We have currently 104 people there with a site manager who reports into me, and that is nuclear fusion. This is one of the renewables. This is very low level waste, doesn't take a lot of materials to get nuclear fusion. Because I've been working there from the concept of Altrad Babcock's tenure there, I've now become the technical authority for nuclear fusion within Altrad Babcock. And my job also carries me all around the country, helping all the other EDF sites to maintain engineering integrity on the sites, and with the other 2 operational managers in the nuclear fleet. What we also do there is control resource and who needs what, when and where and for how long. So we build up all this big picture and the plans of everything that EDF require throughout the nuclear sector, and then between our team we work out who needs to be where and we manage the resource accordingly. Some of the qualifications that I've got since I've left the army through Altrad Babcock was the appointed person for lifting operations. They also sent me away to go on the become a project manager through the APMP scheme. And to go into management, you also need to become IOS trained. So IOS managing safely, and also how far you progress, you go on to different IOS courses. So I've also managed to accomplish the IOS for directors and executives. Is it one of the jobs that I would have thought of doing when I was in the army? No, because I didn't know about it. I really didn't know about it. And it wasn't until I went on to these transitional workshops that I found out that these sort of organisations exist. Would I like to do anything else now? No, not really. I found my niche out of the army, and I'm prepared to stay here now until I retire. So one of the top tips that I would give any service leaver is, when you come out, you're going to be quite nervous, but listen and learn. You know, just don't go in full guns blazing. Listen, learn, and then your skills will quickly adapt to your new surroundings.
Hey Bob, thanks for that.
Okay.
So Bob, from the REME onto the operational side in our nuclear industry, and as Bob said, running some really big stuff down in our nuclear sector. Different story now with Marcus. If I move the slides on, there you go. Marcus, a different start point and doing a different thing for us. Over to you, Marcus.
Cheers, Mike. Thank you. So as Mike said, my name is Marcus Bassett. I was a Warrant Officer 2 in the Royal Marines, which I left in January this year. So quite current in terms of transition. So hopefully be able to provide some up-to-date transition advice and sort of guidance for you from this. I left the Royal Marines at the end of my 22 years, had the opportunity to commission, had the opportunity to extend, but due to personal circumstances with the family, the time was right. So I left on my own terms. Why do I mention that? Purely for the fact that resettlement for me the last 2 years coming into it I really embraced it, which I'll go on to later. Still doing the day job, still working hard, but ultimately accepting and understanding that I was going to have a new career. I wasn't holding out for an extension or for the next draft within the Royal Marines. So I really embraced the challenge of resettlement and took every opportunity as it went. So as Mike said, I'm a project manager currently within Sizewell C. So for those who don't know what Sizewell C is, it's essentially a power station, obviously going to be right next to Sizewell B, where Bob is. It is a replica of HPC, Hinkley Point down in Somerset, due to be commissioned in 2035-26 for both units. How did I get into that from being a Royal Marine PTI? Great question. So I used resettlement, as I said. I didn't have any LCAS because I was ill-advised to use those on a degree that I got in the Royal Marines. I essentially used assets available while in the military, useful sites, as it says there. ILX is a great site if you've got it to get project management experience and learning. You basically get the e-learning for free. All you have to do is pay the exam fee. So it's really, really good way of, if you don't have any LCAS, to upskill in your project management qualifications. I upskilled in Agile project management. I did APMG Agile Foundation and Practitioner, as well as APM PFQ, which is a foundation one, a multi-choice, and PMQ. PMQ, you might have heard about it. It's quite a cheeky exam. They have changed it recently, and the sort of, it was a 50% fail rate. That's now significantly lowered, so more people are passing, which is great. That is the sort of main qualification if I was to advise anyone to get for project management, because it doesn't expire, unlike Prince, which expires after 5 years, and it is the one that you can get chartered status for. So really use that. So yeah, my day-to-day job as a project manager, within the first couple of weeks, I was sat there in an office in Bristol, trying to work out where I was and sort of what was going on, learning about uranium-235, uranium-238, and being told I was getting assigned to essentially the fire node. I know nothing about uranium, I know nothing about fire node, and here I am. Main reason I mention that is I'm not a technical background, but as long as you've got the attitude and the motivation, you're willing to learn, willing to uncover stuff, then you'll do really well. Those transitional skills that Calvin mentioned earlier really do stand you in good stead. So it's all about your attitude, really. And yes, there's going to be some technical stuff that you're not going to be able to get into, but from my point of view and my experience, the management side of it, as long as you're willing to learn the technical side of it, you don't need to be an engineer to be able to manage engineers. You need to be able to manage people, talk to people, manage situations and lead, as opposed to having the technical know-how. Okay, it's really using your team, which is the best thing about being a manager and a leader, is you use your team, they use their strengths all together for the outcome. And that's how I sort of do. The day-to-day stuff, again, I live in Devon. I work on Sizewell C, which is based in Suffolk, and my office is Bristol. So very much the world we live in due to COVID, and where Sizewell C is, it doesn't have the infrastructure for everyone to be working there. So it's really a sort of a hybrid role, which suits me down to the ground. I'm due to go up to site for the first time in next month, I believe. But ultimately, why am I saying that? Because there are opportunities there. You don't have to be located up in London to get the roles. It's just being willing to move a couple of days a week up and down and around the country to the offices where you need to go, and then back for your weekends, which is great. The day-to-day stuff, I've been for the last few months going through contract negotiations with the client we're working with for the fire and hydrogen detection systems for the whole of the nuclear power plant. As I said, it's been a massive uphill learning curve, purely for the fact that I'm not from the technical background, and getting up to speed with contract negotiations, NEC, so engineering contracts, data for those. So if you can now as well, and you're interested in going into project management, do get yourself learning about NEC contracts as well, because that will help out massively. If I had my time again with resettlement, and hopefully this is where I can add the biggest amount of value, because I only joined the company in January, I've put a little 5 to thrive here. Main thing is work out what you don't want to do. Work out what your non-negotiables are. So if you don't want to be traveling and you want to be sat at home, not traveling, being home 9 till 5, then you're not going to be able to get a job which is adding sort of national output. You're looking at local. So again, sounds common sense, but some of the people we spoke to over the last couple of months are sort of expecting London wages, if you like, when they don't want to move and they want to stay in sort of deepest, darkest Cornwall. Embrace the journey. As I said there, change is the only constant. So I really embraced my resettlement period because I knew it was coming up. I was focused on what I wanted to do. I think a few people were still sitting on the fence and sort of, as I said, hoping for an extension or burying their head in the sands with a lot of people. Really don't. You've make resettlement yours. No one else is going to do it for you. So for me, it was a case of going out, speaking to people, speaking to companies. I would chat to people, and the top tip was chatting to an old officer who I rehabbed when he was a officer recruit, and I had a chat with him, and he said, look, I'll give you a top tip. It's when you chat with people, ask them for 3 other contacts that you can then chat with about their experiences, and you're building your network. Why would you build your network? Simple. In my experience, the best way to get into a company is to have people on the inside. 100%. Cold calling and chucking a CV into a LinkedIn algorithm for a job application might be there, but when you've got 20 other people sort of all applying, 20 to 40 people all applying, I think the old school networking and being able to have an introduction in and mutual contacts does help. Sort of leads me into there. Be proactive, not reactive. Shy people don't get sweets. Yeah, so ask for help. Don't bury your head in the sand. Don't think you've got this. Ask for help. Be the sponge, as Bob said there. Really sit down and try and get as much information as you can from people of who've trodden the path. Yes, you carve your own path, what works for you, but ultimately hundreds of people are leaving the forces, every year. Why wouldn't you follow that and take their advice on board, what works well and what doesn't work well? So, ask people for their time. Some of the most helpful people I've met through resettlement have been people I've not met before. So, we always joke about the Navy trying to see the Marines off and stuff, but some of the most helpful people, the naval officers who have gone above and beyond just to help out, and I've never even met before. So, it's worth a coffee, worth a chat. If someone does message you on LinkedIn, have the common courtesy to reply, because it might just make you a sort of job introduction in the long run. Imposter syndrome is a big thing at the minute, which people talk about. I'm not going to sit on the fence here. I think it's an absolute myth. I think it's absolute rubbish. If someone has taken a chance on you to give you a job because they believe in you, they know what skills you've got, what qualifications you've got. Yes, you don't know everything. That's absolutely fine. As long as you're willing to learn and you've got that growth mindset, you will be absolutely fine. Okay, so don't doubt yourself, back yourself. It's a fine line between arrogance and confidence, but you've got to walk the line quite well and be confident in your abilities. If someone has taken a punt on you to be there, you deserve to be there. Back yourself and work hard. So don't worry about the whole imposter syndrome. It doesn't exist. Just work hard and you'll get up to speed. And the last one there is leave your rank at the gate. For the first couple of weeks in my role, when people were asking about my career in the Army, in the Navy, in the Air Force, and sort of going blue in the face, trying to explain to them what the Royal Marines were and what the Royal Marine does and the rank structure. Yeah, people sort of smile and go, "Oh, brilliant, okay." And then it's the same conversation. The rank, it does bring experiences. I'm not denying that, and management and leadership of people, that does come with that. But at the same time, there is sort of no rank in the civilian world. So if you're expecting things to happen because of rank and where you once were, and how it used to operate, then it's sort of going to be a little bit of a shock. Treat everyone as an equal, which is common courtesy and sounds common sense, but I've come across ways when it hasn't happened like that, and that is that would be what I'll leave it with, unless there's anything else you want me to cover, Mike.
Brilliant. No, thanks. Thanks for that. Obviously, a lot of people on the call will be thinking about project management. Marcus has made that journey, so I'm sure in Q&A we pick up an awful lot of percentage. We'll also be looking at health and safety, and so we've got Rob, who's an expert in this area, who will tell you briefly in a few minutes his journey into this and some thoughts on health and safety, which is so critical to this sector.
Sure, Mike. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for allowing me to kind of explain my journey from being a Royal Artillery gunner through to exiting in 2019. I didn't expect to exit. I went on to go through the commissioning process, and for one reason or another, that didn't come to fruition. So my kind of journey through to exiting the military really was a double-edged sword. On one half, I was looking to stay on and plan my future career in the services, whilst having one eye on an exit strategy. And as time got closer and closer, I think around about the 6-month point, I was applying for jobs on the outside. Got to a point where I wasn't receiving much traction in terms of CVs and applications. And ultimately, I just had to go for the shotgun approach. Fortunately, it worked in my favour that the Port of Moston, which RWE operate from, incidentally, I landed myself a job there. The gentleman who owns the port recognises our strengths in terms of military people and the core skills they bring along. And I came to become the ops manager for the port, which included the health and safety management of the port, security as the port facility security officer. And the whole aspiration really there was to get into offshore wind sector and follow a career path in that. And by the way, I'm not up for poaching at the moment, RWE. So that became pretty evident that, you know, the Port of Moston at its heyday was kind of one of the fundamental launch points for offshore wind, building Gwyntamore, Rill Flats, to name just 2 offshore wind farms up in that area. And if I'm brutally honest, I wasn't getting the satisfaction from the role there in the Port of Moston. And I spotted an opportunity to become a health and safety advisor with a telecoms company, tier 2 contractor, which fortunately I bumped into 2 other site majors who are also health and safety advisors. So we had there what was essentially the A team, and as we all developed in our young safety careers at that time, we all move on. It's a little bit like postings, and someone once said to me that you will go through a number of postings before you find the right organisation with the right culture and the right attitudes for you. So from telecoms, I moved on to a multi-utilities sector, working with electricity, high voltage, low voltage, but primarily in the wastewater sector. I've put a little asterisk there next to PE and aggressive growth strategy. One thing I wasn't aware of, and certainly most people in the military aren't commercially aware or commercially alive. I didn't even know what PE stood for when I joined the business. But the managing director took me aside and spent a fair amount of time with me explaining the difference between a private equity-backed company and other ways of businesses and how they make money. That was, as I say, an aggressive growth strategy, buy and build, which is all kind of terminology I needed to get my head around. And that links really to my top tip at the bottom, which I'll come back to later. I was recognised as quite a strong character as a safety advisor in that multi-utilities company, and a position became available as the business grew. And I took up the role of divisional head of health and safety, environment and quality. That saw me up and down the UK. So that's essentially the whole of the UK in what's known as the water division. For one or two different reasons, I kind of had outgrown the business to one degree, and a few other factors. I started looking around for a different role. One of the major factors is that was an hour's commute either way to the location, which was my firm base, for want of a better phrase. That became a particular chore, certainly impacted family life. And I would suggest that your willingness to commute needs to be a factor in that transition, and certainly in selection of an employer. That then landed me here with Altrad, which is just 30 minutes away from home, 22 miles, which is one of the attractions. But more importantly, it's the breadth of what Altrad delivers. As Mike alluded to begin with, they're a global organisation. So my role is the regional health and safety manager for the Northwest region. Probably one of the more complex regions within Altrad, certainly one with the biggest footprint and number of sites. Just across the way, or in fact just out the window here, I work very closely with oil refineries, namely Stanlow Oil Refinery, second biggest in the world. In the UK. In addition to that, along the kind of North Wales, Northwest region, we deal with petrochemicals, chemical processing plants, energy from waste plants, and nuclear maintenance by way of that, I mean Capenhurst. And whilst I don't deal with the nuclear generation, part of my roles and responsibilities, I suppose, is to look after the team which go out to site. And we tend to deal with the mechanical engineering and the maintenance aspects of most of these sites. A lot of it is evolved around or revolves around asbestos management, access, scaffolding, and so on and so on. To draw the whole topic back to hydrogen, Stanlow Oil Refinery is making significant investment, and as it evolves, it will turn itself into a hydrogen plant, and kind of initial works have started with that. In terms of what my day-to-day tasks are really, so I deliver on the business health and safety strategy and targets for the region. Essentially, I take the orders from above in terms of vice president safety and strategic objectives of the business, turn them into outputs for the region, and drive the meeting of those targets and objectives through our operational workforce. I engage with clients, regulators, and I also undertake investigations which warrant my involvement. Ordinarily, I have a team of 4 around me, which would undertake the lower level investigations. But occasionally I do need to get involved, especially if we think those incidents are going to attract the attention of the HSE or the regulators. And that's where really, I suppose, the experience at senior level in the military, you have to put a diplomatic head on, and your methodology of engaging with those authorities has to be slightly different and incredibly professional. A skill set that we'll all have is how to develop, coach and mentor the teams around us. And I kind of take real pride that the team around me are seeing the fruits of me being here already through investment through them, coaching and mentoring them, and really bringing them on in their journey. I'll always recall an old Sergeant Major of mine saying, I don't want you to be as good as me, I want you to be better than I am, and that rings true, and that's a mantra that I've taken on through into Civilian Street, and I think it plays really, really well. I work very closely with our clients in terms of risk assessments, method statements, methodologies, hazard observations, job safety analysis, and so on and so on. And occasionally, we do have to calibrate our clients as well. Health and safety is a huge topic. There are that many different areas, and legislation can be interpreted in different ways. I have the might behind us that we have a number of technical authorities that were alluded to earlier on, and these really are subject matter experts in areas such as asbestos removal, temporary works management, lifting operations, the list goes on. We have really, really good people who are subject matter experts in these fields. I go as far as to say some of those subject matter experts actually sit on committees that are driven by the HSE. So we've got a seat at the table with the HSE, as well as national groups such as the National Association of Scaffolding Confederation. We actually sit on the committee for that, and we drive improvements through national scaffolding. With that, I work on and manage, monitor key performance indicators and develop improvement strategies for the region, as well as getting out on site, leading leadership engagement tours, engaging with people, having safety conversations, but also drawing back and looking at the leading and lagging indicators, which then improve our overall performance in safety. In terms of top tips while you're serving, the MOD's health and safety environment, I can't think of the word now, their blueprint, for want of a better phrase, is an incredibly good document, GSP 75, and everything else that falls under that. Anyone who's looking to get into the health and safety game, please take some time to read that. It's a really good document, and unbeknown to a lot of people, a lot of organisations do go onto the online Gov website, rip that off and use it as a safety management system. It is a very good system. Out with that, I missed a trick and an opportunity here. That there are loads of courses, low-hanging fruit ones which people would rod off ordinarily, especially at senior rank, but things like fire marshal and environmental courses, any first aid trainer courses, etc. All the Gizzits courses, grab while you're still in service. They do lend themselves to any employer, and it's an additional string to your bows while you're out here. My top tip, as was alluded to earlier on, there are many people who are experts in their fields, and generally they're always willing to help out, take time out to educate you and give you a depth of understanding in their subject matter areas. And likewise, I also like to give back in the subject matter areas that I have got expertise in. It's a two-way thing out here. So I find asking for help rather than burying your head in the sand and trying to grizz through, asking for help is definitely the best way ahead. Mike, that's me in a nutshell, I suppose. Happy to take any questions, and like the others, tap me up on LinkedIn if needs be. Yeah, here for you guys.
Thanks, Rob. Conscious of time, so Holly is going to go straight into what she does and crucially the talent stuff that we do in Altrad, and I'll quickly sum it up at the end so that there's time for questions. Over to you, Holly.
Yep. Cheers, Mike. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for, obviously, I know this has been a long call for everyone, so thank you for still being on. My name's Carly Atkinson. I am currently the Talent Development Manager for the whole of Altrad, so I cover all of the white collar, blue collar. And in your world, that will be kind of operational and attached arms. That's kind of where that sits. I did my first lot of training within the Army as an Arabic linguist. I was with the Intelligence Corps and very quickly realised I would be stuck in a bunker in Digby. So I transferred over to the Royal Army Medical Corps. Did my 12 years, spent most of that in Germany, left as a sergeant due to personal reasons. I know I don't look it, but I had 4 children at that point, and my husband at that time was serving as well. So our family kind of situation meant that I was the one to take the hit to leave. My transition was pretty easy. I'm not going to lie to you. I was still stationed in Germany for a year after I left, so I still had that family kind of military life around me, which made that really easy. And then when I came back to the UK, I picked up the job that I left where I was doing a lot of training. I was kind of the, although I was a practice manager in the medical corps, I was also the training officer. And I moved into the civil service as the regional training officer for DPHC North. So I was still very much in that environment. How did I come about this role here? I've had a lot of different roles since I left the military, but what I kind of sat and reflected on at one point, mainly through COVID, was it was the people element of my work that I really enjoyed. I loved seeing people's potential. I loved developing them. I just liked to see people thrive. So when the job became available at Altrad for the talent development manager, I interviewed for that and luckily I was successful. There's a few things with Altrad that were kind of synergies with the military. They've got a whole load of things that they stick by. So, you know, integrity, things like that kind of aligned with me. They had values and standards, which is really important to me. And also a big thing for me was that they did invest in their people. So what I'm kind of going to give you, rather than blab on about my story and tell you kind of how I got here, is kind of what I would recommend you look for when you go out there. So a big thing is knowing that the skills you have, whether they're operational or attached arms, are still transferable. It doesn't matter what industry. The discipline, the leadership, the teamwork, the problem solving under pressure, that's exactly what the industry needs in renewables. Obviously, I know this call's big about that, but the nuclear, I don't know if anybody will get the chance to go down to Hinkley, but when you're walking around there, you've got your safety head on. It's like being on ops. There's a lot of moving parts going on, so you need to be on your game. People underestimate, and I know I did myself, and I know Marcus briefly spoke about imposter syndrome. You don't value yourself. You just need to get over that, because if people are taking a chance on you, like Marcus said, you've got the skills that they're looking for. Another one of my tips would be open to start small, but keep that bigger picture in mind. You've heard everybody on this call talk at the moment who is a veteran that now works with Altrad. This wasn't our first move. Just getting your foot in that door and realizing what you like and what you don't like is the first step for this. And, you know, until you find your forever role, just test the water, just go out and do it. You know, as long as you're actively doing it, you'll be absolutely fine. The growth at Altrad is something that really kind of resonates with me. Like I said, I'm very invested in people. So when you're looking for an employer, look for one that's going to do that develops their people and has a purpose. So With Altrad, I obviously look after all the development, and that means succession planning. We look at career scales from coming in as an apprentice all the way up to director, principal engineers, everything in between. But also we're quite happy to help people move sideways. So if you came in, I don't know, health and safety advisor, and you fancy the project management route, people are very open, and there's opportunities way across the business for you to be able to come in, but then kind of navigate left or right, depending on where you feel that's right for you. But the most important thing is the grass green is where you water it. Just pick something that feels good for you, and that's where you're going to thrive. Thanks, Mike.
Brilliant, Carly. Thank you so much for that. And just very briefly at the end, here we are. We've got 40,000 people required in the nuclear sector. So hence why we've made such a play on nuclear today. The renewables, again, as Carly sort of mentioned there, think about the company and not just the thing that you're going to go into. It's the growth, it's the development you can have across a company. And one of the things which we have set up is our mission ready program. This is still in its infancy. We're fairly new to this game, hence we're only bronze on the ERS, but we're dedicated to this. We signed the covenant. We've got different entry points, work ready for people who are coming out their military really early, apprenticeships that we've been referred to elsewhere as well. But we've got this network going, and we do genuinely try and mentor people as they come in with another military veteran, and the career progressions there. We're also, we're trying to give back to Scottish Little Soldiers as our new partnership, and it's something which we're very passionate about. But what's really interesting is what we're going to plan, and that's a dedicated pathway to nuclear. We're going to try and do that cross-sector, not just for Altrad, and some other things that we're looking at as well. Dedicated inbox, bottom right, and do look at that careers page for the sort of things that are out there right now, from the entry-level roles right up to some of the more senior roles that are always there. Always happy to chat. Have a chat to us on LinkedIn. Any of the veterans who are spoken today will always do that as well. That's probably us sort of going slightly over there, Angela, but back to you. I'll stop sharing the screen now.
It was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for that. Honestly, the speakers did a fantastic job, so thank you. We'll let you take your presentation down. If we do have any questions, please raise your hand or ask questions. I just want to check in with Celia just to check if our two speakers have joined us. At the point they do, we'll get them to speak, but we'll ask some questions meantime.
Hello, I'm Pete Chilcott. As you can see, I'm a safety advisor here at the Rampion Wind Farm down on. We're actually based in New Haven, but the wind farm sits off of Brighton. Today we're not sailing because we've got something like 5-6 meter seas out there, so it would be a bit lumpy going out in the boat. My story, I'll keep it quick and simple because I'm conscious I would like you guys to be able to ask some questions. I joined the Navy as a gunner, so 4.5s and all that kind of stuff. But I always wanted to be a radiographer in the Navy, which never quite happened. I stepped across to the medical branch after 2 years, polishing up 40-60s and 3-inch rocket launchers, and then became a medical assistant in the Navy. As a rating, I worked in hospitals. I became a submariner. And then I went off, worked with the commandos, tried the all arms course 3 times, but never quite got over the 6th World War. But worked with Camacho Group and Commando Logs for a while. Then I got promoted as a medical services officer. I was a health physicist. I did a tour in Iraq, and I did some research work. When I was a health physicist up in Faslane, I had a guy work for me, and it was clear that you clearly really going to do very well, this guy, and I tried to give him a couple of helpful words and some support, but then our worlds passed and I went on. I left the Navy on age, and I tried to set up on my own doing project support work, using my security clearance, which I still had, so I worked with various agencies that required that kind of level of qualification. Work started to dry up. And then I got a message from this guy saying, had I considered health and safety as a role? And I said, well, I haven't touched that since we worked together. He said, don't worry about that. We'll manage that. He sat me down with a contracting company, and I then got a job very quickly on his recommendation as a health and safety advisor, helping to build solar farms. I very quickly had to learn from Google and elsewhere my knowledge of health and safety, but developed it very quickly. And then I moved on to the construction side of the wind farm I'm on, laying the cable route 26 kilometers across Sussex. And then I got the role as the permanent safety advisor for the operating wind farm, which is where I am now. So what it turns out is that Marcus Peters, the guy that used to work for me, when he contacted me, had then become at that point the global head of health and safety within E.ON. So roles have been reversed quite dramatically, and he was quite a senior role. And he's somebody I've always been incredibly grateful for this opportunity. As a safety advisor here, you're very much, it's kind of gone full circle in a way that I've got very much a pastoral role, as you do as a medic with on a ship or a submarine or a commando unit. You're looking after a group of people who are your people. Not only do you have their physical well-being at heart, their safety, but also their mental well-being. Our teams work 12-hour days, 7 days on, 7 days off, and it can become quite taxing. With smallish turbines, 3.45, so they have to work in some restricted spaces. So as one of the speakers mentioned earlier, you can get a bit achy by the end of the day, and it's a fairly physical job. But I think many of the people here love it, and it's a really good team here. I just wanted to mention, I don't think he's going to come on. Stuart Harris, who's also one of our team, is today has just done the final presentation and interview for his apprenticeship. So technically, this is the last day for him. Stuart's an excellent guy. As a mature man, he came into our apprenticeship program from the Welsh Guards, having done tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and has made the step across. And he's going to be a great asset to the team. He's worked in construction and development. He's currently the safety advisor at Real Flats in North Hoyle, which is in Mostyn Bay, and he operates from there. I don't think I need to say anything about being a health and safety advisor. I think you can kind of work out what it is. You do have quite a broad brief, looking after, as I said, the physical safety, going out to the turbines, climbing up, sitting with the guys and girls, help watching their work, understanding what they do, and then trying to find ways to make that life a bit easier for them with innovative processes and equipment. And it's also a great, working with a small crowd like we do here, we're a maximum of 50 people. But again, it's very much being like back in wearing uniform in whichever service you're in. It's a really good. Each wind farm is a little unit on its own, and it's great. Within the team, we've also got an RAF guy who's a safety advisor up in the northeast. We've got an ex-Royal engineer. I think he's an engineer who's moved across from Cumbria. He's now on the northeast as well. And we've had contractors this summer who've come from Royal Marines, the Royal Lancashire Regiment, and a few others as well. Within the business, we've got safety advisors, we've got engineers, we've got technicians, we've got logistics people, we've got business support. The CTVs that operate out to the wind farm have got ex-military people on it. And in a lot of those fields, we're crying out for people. So as has also been said earlier, we're not just looking for wind turbine technicians, because that's a job everybody knows about. But there are a lot of other roles out there as well. I'm going to flash this up for a second. Bear with me. Yeah, I know I've got too many tabs open, guys. That's my LinkedIn QR code. Take a grab of that. Inundate my inbox. If you're in the area of East Sussex, get in touch. I'm happy to show you around the site, and we can have a chat, and you can try and talk to some of the people we've got on the site. I think I'll end there to allow some questions to be asked. But as I said, please inundate my inbox. Hit me up anywhere else you find me.
That was fantastic. Yeah, thank you very much for that. We appreciate you coming on board. We know that you're busy, so thank you for dialing in. And again, thank you to all our speakers. I'll just start off just to kind of warm you up. Just Celia, you kicked us off this morning, so thank you very much for that. It was a really good resource list that you brought up, so we thank you for compiling that and pulling that together. It was just quite interesting that you said communication is a key skill set and it's what you're looking for. So just in terms of how do you best portray that on a CV?
I'm probably not the ideal person to ask that, in the sense that I spent enough time working with a couple of thousand military in the years, so that I mean, if I was to say rank helps. The minute I say WO2, I'm going awesome, because I know that they can communicate up the line, down the line, as well as the ability to put across, to motivate teams, put engineering concepts across. I think it was Marcus said that, you don't have to be an engineer to be able to communicate engineering principles. So I think there's a variety of ways of doing it, but for me, as I say, because I do understand the rank structure to some extent, it's easier to pick up that way. But there's a number of different other ways that I could suggest. Can I add one thing that I think?
Yeah, of course.
There were a number of points that came across in the conversation that were invaluable, and I totally agree with them. From the offshore wind side of things, I didn't put across, and I think it's really important, that 90% of the jobs in the supply chain. So it's not just about trying to go for the company sitting at the top. This is where, as Mike mentioned, the amount of work, and I think one of your colleagues mentioned the amount of work that you do with the likes of RWE, with the developer of it, of the various projects, whether it's hydrogen or solar or anything else. But there are jobs right the way through. And picking up on Marcus's point about find out where you fit, where do you want to work and do the things you want to do. There's also nothing wrong with getting it wrong first time. And so a number of people I've seen come into a job and then beat themselves up because they discovered it's just not for them. And it does take a bit of time actually to understand, the difference of working in a very small company, a big company, a global company, and the structures there and how one fits into it.
I think that's a very good point. Yeah, no, it's an excellent point. Robert, Matthew, have you got a question to ask? Hi, Robert. You're mute, sorry.
I've been that guy. It was Celia first, now it's me.
We don't mind.
I'll take the question on communication, effective communication on CVs. First point really is, as a manager, I get hundreds of CVs through my desk. And I'll be brutally honest, if you spend 2 minutes reading it, you'd be very lucky. So please, anyone who's generating CVs, let's make them succinct, make sure they present really well. And in terms of effective communication, we know amongst us in our cohort that we receive, we're all used to radios, acknowledge, Roger over, Roger out, all that stuff. So that three-way conversation and communication is very effective. Our civilian counterparts are not as good as that. You may be waiting weeks, perhaps, for somebody to respond from a CV, an email. Drawing back to CVs, I suppose. It's always nice to see that if anyone's unclear in what's being asked of them, they'll always go back and seek clarity. So that's certainly one valid point to get into a CV. And out with that, we're all quite versed as military people in effective writing and communication. I think that's critical to get into a CV. And that will be demonstrated through the way your CV is laid out and how succinct it is. Always one to keep an eye on. Does that answer your question?
It does. Yeah, no, that's fantastic advice. Yeah, we appreciate that. I liked Mike's comment in terms of nuclear is what will get us to the green energy target. It is a hot market, and for those that are listening this morning and that are watching this back, if you are looking for imminent employment, it might be a great place to start because it is quite a wide sector. So I know that there's a few on the call listening that are looking for roles now, so we'll signpost you there. Just a couple of questions for Bob Anderson. I've noted obviously that you are a remate. Do you think that those guys and girls are well suited in this space?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. You know,
Yeah.
it's not only the engineering skills that they bring, but it's the engineering management as well that allows them to progress and gives them the opportunity to climb up the promotional ladder within the nuclear sector, especially within Altrad. I came out as a MVQ level 3 staff sergeant. I didn't go down the artificer route, but when I joined Altrad Babcock, they saw something in me, and whether it was managerial or the willing to get the job done safely, compliantly, I soon got noticed, and then I soon got put on the promotional ladder up to operations manager. So I started off really, a resident engineer is a posh way of saying senior supervisor. So,
just on the management skills you referenced there, you obviously went on and did the APM course. Would you recommend that to those listening?
Absolutely, yeah. So if they want to use any of their learning credits that they have, or like Marcus turned around, was it ITX or something, Marcus? I didn't have that during my time. You know, please try and get that done while you can if you're serving. It's a week-long course. My one was with a painful exam at the end, which was 3 hours long. But it's worth it because it opens the doors for you for your career to advance.
And again, it's great that Altrad are investing in their staff. So, and you're a glowing example. So even the logo's on you. So the one thing that you also said, that the piece of advice you gave at the end was listen and adapt. Yeah. Just on that, when somebody is transitioning and are just a tad overwhelmed and there's lots of noise, how do you tune in and what do you listen to? Is it the managers around you? Is it guys you've served with?
Well, when I came into this industry, I didn't come into the industry with anybody else from the forces. I was sort of on my own, learning how to become a civilian straight away. I come out of the forces one week and then I was in the next week, and then I had to adapt to my surroundings, and not my surroundings adapt to me. And I had to learn that. And a quick joke I've got is within the first 6 weeks of me being at Hinkley Point B, my site manager came up to me and he goes, "Oh, Bob, I love what you're doing." He said, "But you've got to stop shouting at the blokes, they don't like it." You know, but it's those messages that I was getting, and I had to sort of like calm down a little bit. But you adapt. You listen to what's been told and you adapt, and just carry up. Yeah.
So if a service leaver's on site, you know whether they're freshly out or whether they've been out for years. You can tell.
Yeah, because they walk around without their hands in their pockets.
Okay. Right. Okay. So I'll look out for that. Okay. You mentioned a comment that Marcus had made. Just a quick couple of questions to Marcus. You picked up on the theme of managing teams rather than being the technical expert. Can I ask, is that a rank comment? Does that make sense?
No, but it's for me, going from as Calvin mentioned it earlier as well, being in the Royal Marines is ace, running around with guns, jumped out of helicopters, but technically we don't really, unless we go to be TELS techs, we don't really have the qualifications. So going in and managing people or leading people, managing situations, and so you don't have to be technical, you have to understand it, but you know, you don't need the longest handled screwdriver in the world to be able to get people done. So it's really about empowering your team, which, yes, that comes with, I wouldn't say with rank, it does come with rank, but there's some people who are very high up in the military who leadership and sort of the way they manage isn't great. I've come across people like that in my time. So it's about the potential of people, and it's about trusting your team and empowering your team. I've always worked like that, and that's how I like to think I led, and how I like to think I do lead now. So that's something that I've translated straight across into those that I'm working with. And it's understanding your team, what everyone brings to the party, and it's using those strengths. So to achieve the goal, obviously, because the person ultimately in charge doesn't need to know all the bits of information. They just need to know the critical information, what's getting done, when it's getting done, and that's that.
And on that critical information piece, you mentioned contract negotiation. So with contracts and commercial, can I ask, how hard has it been?
Yeah, fair. I used to have fully black hair. I'm sort of a bit salt and pepper now. No, it's been a learning curve. It's been a challenge. I'm not going to lie. To go from the first couple of weeks and had a sort of 2-3 weeks sort of build in, and then going straight into where we are now. And the contractor said we're looking to sign contracts in 3 months. To go through a completely new process of tender negotiations, tender evaluations, internal governance through Sizewell C, Genco, Holdco, all the board papers and understanding processes. It's you've got that side of it, which is process led, which it's simple to me because I like to understand black and white. How do I get from this? What's essentially the JSP? That's how you produce the output. The other side of it has been completely new because you are dealing with companies who are the subject matter experts of what they are. And then for me, it's been a bit weird looking at their bid for the work on Sizewell C, and it's the contract I'm working on at the minute. It's about 92 million. So it's not pocket change, and trying to understand that bid and how we reflect value for money for Sizewell C moving forward. So you've got your team around you who you sort of, as Bob mentioned earlier, you be that sponge, and as long as you're willing to learn and grow, I think it's going to be a challenge, but ultimately I think majority of people on this call will want a challenge rather than just going into 9 till 5 and sort of kicking back. As long as you embrace it, it's good and you're willing to learn.
So is it fair for employers to say no because that experience is critical? So for those listening that are just kind of licking their wounds because they've maybe just got a rejection and they're kind of thinking, well, how did you get in if you didn't have that experience? Is it a bit of luck? Is it just your other strengths need to be stronger just to get your foot in the door? Is it stick with a veteran program because other veterans will understand what you can do and that you can upskill quickly? What advice would you give to those? Yeah, okay.
I think it's different for everyone. There's no right path. You know, some people will will have contacts in companies that can get in. The thing that frustrated me the most about this is sort of bootnecks as Royal Marines. We're sort of thick as thieves, if you like. We've got this sort of band of brothers theme. There was a lot of noise, and going back to an earlier point about how you manage resettlement, there's a lot of noise of people going, yeah, come to my company, I'll get you in, no problem. We've already trodden the path. So I had CVs and referrals into sort of 5 or 6 of the main companies. CVs are passed. There was literally no opportunity at the time. I think this time last year the government had just changed. Some of the major companies have changed the way they're recruiting. I could have sort of really focused on that and let it get me down. It just wasn't the right time. So as one door closes, another door opens, and I actually spoke to a colleague in Altrad, a civvy mate, if you like. I'm allowed to have civvy mates now. One of those in Altrad who referred me in. So it was right place, right time. Basically, the Sizewell C were looking to, within the team, employ someone who had, you know, the ability to get stuff done, which as service leavers we want. He had experience being in the army and sort of took a punt on me. So I was fortunate, right place, right time. But ultimately, I think it's really getting out there, networking, chatting to these people about how they did it. I think is key, rather than chuck it in blindly. And don't listen to, not trust people, understand who you can trust, but don't listen to the people who go, yeah, I'll promise you the world, or recruiters reaching out on LinkedIn, because they will do it just to grow their network. Ultimately, it's I'm not saying ignore them, but don't chuck all your eggs in one basket. That answers the question, Angela.
Can I just add to that as well, Angela?
Of course,
sorry.
Carly,
Just what I find really important, and I do a lot of work, obviously, with the development, the Altrad guys as well, that have been in situ for so long, and a lot of the people are still developing their soft skills. Now, that's something you can pick up yourself, and you don't need a course for it. You can just get on the internet. There's free courses out there. All those soft skills of interpersonal communication, your conflict resolution, all that stuff builds a bigger picture. So if you do get to an interview, you can show that and you can voice that. And also prep for your interviews. There's so much knowledge out there. These guys are going to interviews blind, saying, oh, well, I don't really know a lot about that. You're setting yourself up to fail. You should be setting yourself up to success. You can use, there's so many tools out there now that you can use to kind of make sure that you win in interviews. I mean, even without the skills, if you show you're willing to go out to learn, and you can back that up by the way you kind of project yourself at interview, you're setting yourself up for success.
No, brilliant advice, Carly. And Celia, to you.
To some extent, it's picking up both what Carly's just said and what Marcus has said. I think there's a couple of points. Firstly, that there is a difference in approach required depending on age and experience within the military. So if somebody's coming out, 5-year point, 5-7 years, under the age of 40 tends to be, round about that. I would suggest they ought to be spending about 60% of the time looking for opportunities to put applications in, and the other 40% is about networking. Once you get into the more experienced positions, then that flips. And as Marcus said earlier, it's a focus on networking. Most of the time should be networking. The job probably won't come from that first line of contact. It'll be somebody else, but trying to build up the network. And it's, you know, the first thing I say when I talk to people about their LinkedIn profile, if you haven't got 1,000 contacts, you need to work on it, because at 1,000, your name starts coming up to the top of the list. And so it's really critical. The other thing is looking for companies that, if you want, you know, one that is military friendly, and I've got friends of mine who came out of the military and wanted nothing to do with the military, didn't want anything to do with that environment at all. And so some of those have moved into SMEs. I'm using a civilian, the small to medium-sized enterprise. I think it took me a long time to find out why in military we talk about SMEs, and it didn't relate to my conversations. But look for ones that have got the Employer Recognition Award. And we've got gold. We were the first offshore wind company to get gold, but they'll have an Armed Forces champion. So that might be the way in, actually, to try and get hold of the Armed Forces champion and say, what are you looking for?
Yeah, brilliant advice. Yeah, really, really, really good advice. A quick question to Rob Matthews, just on behalf of a couple of candidates that I know that have dialed in. Brilliant presentation, Rob. So thank you for that. Your current role of Regional Health and Safety Manager. So the question is, do you feel you had to build up to that, or could you have walked into that role? And the reason I'm asking is we will have candidates with the depth of experience in health and safety, but I just wonder how much a senior role is discipline led and how much more, or how much of it is leadership, client facing, civic experience.
Yeah, sure. So my approach really was, I realized that I had to bite the bullet and take a bit of a step back and learn my craft. As I mentioned earlier on, the breadth of safety, there's not a part in the business that safety doesn't touch, be it commercial, finance, everything. In order to refine your skill set, it's one thing going off and knocking out a bunch of NEBOSH courses under one resettlement package, which is fine. That's almost like passing your driving license. I felt as though I needed to build up my credentials, but also my skill set and knowledge. At senior levels, which I guess most of the people on here will have the leadership and management skills, that complements the managerial aspect. So I wouldn't recommend anybody diving straight into a managerial, health and safety managerial position. You have to have the backing of the competence, as we call it in my sphere of the organization now. And that gives you credibility. You can't go into a boardroom, as an example, and present the findings of an investigation without credibility. And in order to gain that credibility, you need to have that working knowledge of whatever's gone wrong. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Okay, no, it does. And again, Marcus, I love the advice that you give, but you do sound very military. I think even I was sitting to attention, I can picture you with your uniform on, and I can see that vein, that thread in all of you. A shout out to Mike Butterworth. You are the wise owl, so you have been guiding and mentoring all of us. So a huge shout out to you, and thank you very much for pulling this together. So you were just a key pivotal person that and thank you for bringing this topic to our attention, because I think we might need to do a take two in a couple of months because it's been proven to be so popular. So thank you to RWE, Celia, Kevin, Pete, and to Altrad, the incredible Mike, Bob, Marcus, Rob, and Carly, to our military community watching, RWE and Altrad are exceptional employers. As Carly advised, until you find your forever role, then test the water. So take the leap of faith. All experience is good experience and it won't be wasted. It's just a chapter in your story that you will learn from. Remember, you're not alone. BuildForce are here to support and guide you as you transition. So please get in touch if you have any questions and we'll help you take it further. Your CV and comments to BuildForce, and we can further connect you with the employers today. Quick reminder, BuildForce Insight Day, 1st of October. Employers are nationwide and looking to engage with you, our military community. The event is in Manchester and you can register with us. Our sponsor is Strabag, the European huge contractor, so lots of work going on for them. And again, we'll see you back here in 2 weeks' time with Fenna Group on the testing and inspection space. So please take care, look after yourself, and sorry we've overrun, but thank you for bearing with us. Okay, thank you to our speakers, you've been incredible. All right, we'll speak to you soon. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Celia. We'll see you later.
Thanks,
Bye.
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. That was great.